Hi everyone, welcome to the Boys Club. I'm Clarke Wolfe.
I'm Holly Payne.
And this is our True Detective perspective. It's the
episode!
Everyone put your antlers on.
I know, yeah, we were actually, I was gonna say, I ordered us antlers and they didn't show up. Thank you, Amazon.
Yeah.
So we were gonna have some cute little antlers for
It's
you
okay,
today,
we have our antlers now.
Ah.
So, finale.
Finale.
Do you have any major reactions just right off the bat? Just general. Things that really stood out to you.
Let's see. I was shocked because I had been saying that I didn't think that it was the lawnmower guy who was the Yellow King, and he obviously was the Yellow King, so it was even more simple than I thought. Like, I thought that they were going to throw in a little more of a twist, and we were going to find out who these 5 guys were, the animal masks.
Oh, right.
There were things that were not wrapped up, but on the whole, I really liked the episode.
Yeah.
And I wasn't disappointed like I was with, I'll bring it back, Lost again, because it was much more about the characters to begin with.
Right.
And we only had 2 main characters to really focus our attention on.
Right.
So I felt like the bromance really, it wrapped up well. And I was surprised they didn't die. I really thought they were going to
I was surprised they didn't die too. In fact, when Rust got stabbed, I thought he was gone for sure. And then when Marty got the hatchet to the chest, I was like, whoa, both of them?
That was a pretty deep wound, might I add, too. Because that was that was a hatchet to his chest. Yeah. And then he goes to the hospital, and he's kind of okay. He's walking around. I've been in the hospital recently, and it's not, you don't recover that fast.
Yeah, well, Marty Hart, he's
right.
made of stone, apparently.
And apparently, so is Rust, because he's unkillable.
Yes,
Marty
that was hilarious. But, I was surprised both of them didn't die as well. I was definitely, but more so, I was really surprised that Rust didn't die. But I really... here's the thing that I sort of kind of realized is that, and I don't remember if I've said this on this show or if I said it personally to a friend, but my whole deal with True Detective, as you guys know, I wanted this all in one package. I wanted all 8 episodes up front because I wanted to go through and then start all over and watch it again. Yeah. And as the show progressed, I really kind of realized that part of the reason why I wanted that is not necessarily because I'm an impatient viewer, but it's because I couldn't quite put my finger on what kind of story they were trying to tell. There's so many different elements, in my opinion, to the season of True Detective.
Now, what do you mean exactly? In the name it says True Detective, so I was expecting something actually more pulpy than what it turned out to be. But as far as, what type of story, what do you mean? Yeah,
well, so, I didn't watch any promotional materials for the show, so I didn't watch any of the teases, I didn't watch any of the commercials, I just knew, based on Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, that I was going to watch the show. I didn't really care what it was.
Right.
In fact, I even...
That's a given right there.
Yeah, it was, for me especially, and I even kind of thought it was going to be a more procedural kind of thing, with the exception of the cast. I knew they wouldn't do anything straight and narrow, but even if it had been just a regular old cop drama, I would have been fine with that because I wanted to watch the 2 of them. What we got in the actual show was we got a lot of horror elements. We got a lot of this interpersonal story. We got that active viewing experience of a bit of mythology that you can kind of unpack and explore. And to me, as a consumer, that's why I couldn't quite put my finger on what this story was.
Another reason I think that is the case is because we've never seen anything from Nick Pizzolatto before.
Sure, yep, that's true.
He was brand new on the scene, so we didn't, and, as far as the director, Cary Fukunaga, we've only seen Jane Eyre and very kind of moody, stuff from him before, but it was a completely new venture. The only things we were confident with were Woody and McConaughey.
Yep.
And boy, did it surprise all of us, I think.
Yeah, it ultimately ended up being a really big surprise, but I think that with the story that they ended up telling, that's what I meant, is that I wanted all 8 of those episodes so I could watch through, know what kind of story we were getting, and then go back and appreciate the choices and the nuances and things like that, knowing what you're in for.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I feel like that even though there were many questions left unanswered, that I could go back and watch the entire series and not be disappointed, not feel unsatisfied by the end of it, because we actually got the most important thing, which was the resolution between Marty and Russ. And they even have like a, the conversation in the car where they actually talk it out. But as far as like going back to the specifics of the episode, some of the things that we didn't see were pretty glaring, I felt. Namely, the 5 men, mystery men. Let's see, what else? I mean, there's so many. It's hard to even wrap up anything. The daughter, Maggie's daughter and Marty's daughter. Yeah, there were like a lot of ties that just didn't...
That we didn't ever find out about.
We never got... Yeah. But as opposed to, say, the Breaking Bad ending episode, we didn't get it tied up in a little bow either, which is good. I took a few notes because I was rewatching the episode this morning, and the character of Errol Childress, that opening scene, or those opening scenes, are just so deeply disturbing.
So screwy.
That I was, recoiling while I was watching it the second time. But the actor who plays Errol, who plays the lawnmower man, he really reminds me, I don't know if you know this actor, he was from LA Law a while back, Larry Drake. Do you know who he is?
Not at the top of my head.
He's really creepy, and there's something like really penetrating about his eyes and stuff like that. He's super creepy, but this guy, Glenn Fleshler, I think is his name. Weird, creepy last name.
Sure.
But he plays this character so well, the fact that he goes between accents. You know, I love that they were playing North by Northwest on the movie, the Alfred Hitchcock movie. And just the fact that he seems really smart, as opposed to his sister, who is,
sister, lover, friend.
Yeah. Soft-brained.
Something that stood out to me, just as a bit of a horror junkie, was when Childress and Rust have that sort of standoff.
Yeah.
And just the shot composition of Childress standing there in the suit, in his whatever he's wearing, like one-piece little thing, and he says, get on your knees, and he just says no, and runs. That was just like, that actor, Glenn, did so much with his very little screen time.
He really did.
And very little, and I really enjoyed also.
He was just so deeply creepy. I haven't seen a creepy character like that played in a long time. And it wasn't just the scars, it was the...
And all of the supporting cast in this show. I mean, all of the bit players who came on for a day, whether it was the Childress housekeeper who explains Carcosa, or just all the little touches here. The sister lover friend.
Which her name is Ann Dowd, and she's fairly new on the scene, but she was in a great movie that came out a couple years ago called Compliance with my friend Pat Healy, and I hadn't seen her do much before that except for that movie. And man, I mean, the two of them together, whew,
just so great.
Yeah.
Really, really, really great. Really.
There is a line that I will never forget, and I wrote it down. Do you want to make flowers on me? You haven't made flowers on me in almost 3 weeks.
It's funny, I was telling Holly that I totally missed what they were talking about the first time around. I was just staring, and then my friend texted me, and he was like, "Is that not the creepiest thing you've ever heard?"
It is
and
so
I was
fucked
like,
up.
And I was like, "Oh, that's what. Oh, yeah, that's really weird." It just totally. It's funny. I don't know. This is a rather off, to the side kind of comment, but so I'm from the South, and I don't know if that's the reason why. Like, I just watch those scenes, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
Oh, it just went... that's how they talk.
Just like, yeah, sure, okay, people are weird. Yeah, they're pretty weird.
She's being so romantic.
I don't know, no, definitely. Yeah, that's why I was like, wait, you don't call it that?
Oh my god, when that first came out of her mouth, I was just like, oh,
so great.
No. And their brother and sister. And another part of that scene, which is also obviously super creepy, little detail that the dialogue could have slipped by a lot of people, not you guys, because you guys are smart, but when Errol says, "Come over and sit on my lap," he's talking to his sister, and he says, "Now tell me the story about Grandpa again," which he'd said it in a previous episode. We've been here for a long time, so this incest and this kind of messed up backwoods stuff has been going on for a very long time, and within that family.
Yeah, I think that was also... if there was a big takeaway point from the series, I think it really all goes back to that line that Marty has: you don't pick your parents and you don't pick your partner. And that's way back early in the season. And, you know, the conclusion I sort of came to was that, you know, this is a big show about family, and about the protections of certain families, whether it's the Tuttle family, which in that systematic and also real family atmosphere, whether it's Marty's broken family, whether it's Rust who's lost his family, whether it's the Childress family, that, you know, because look, I mean, I understand this is going to sound really, really strange, but at the end of the day, Errol was abused, was a child at first, was abused, was indoctrinated, and like you said, with this incest that's been going on for generations, this is a family that has been doing this for a while.
And also, I think a good sort of, I think it's kind of, it feels like it's a little bit of a metaphor, but maybe I'm reading into it. But the fact that this murderous family, this, you know, pedophilic family, is incestuous is kind of a metaphor for what has been happening in the government, and there's a lot of
you protect your own.
Yeah,
you protect your own, and I think that to the bigger point, that is how these things are able to happen. I think that because Nick Pizzolatto has said that you know, if you Google cults, Louisiana, and child molestation, you get this real case that exists and existed in 1995.
Well, that's where that stuff can exist too. It's off the grid.
Well, and with law enforcement, though, we know in your everyday life, there are systematically things, because of politics, because of friendships, because of relationships, whatever, they do get protected. And so I think you're absolutely right. It does serve the bigger metaphor of you protect your own.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. There's some other issues in the episode that were just, I loved the fact that we were immersing ourselves finally in Carcosa. I was trying to figure out where that was, whether it was like a Civil War type bunker or something like that. But just the fact that they took their time with that scene, they could have used that time for answering some other questions that we all had. But I felt like because it was the conclusion of Marty and Rust's character development, that it was mandatory that they both were in peril at the same time, that we got to see them, you know, that we finally saw Marty stand up and be noble, you know. That was a really satisfying end. I knew that was going to happen. I was excited about that, and I'm glad Marty wasn't found out to be the killer, obviously. Let's see, some of the other things that I noticed too is that the hallucination that Marty has,
or that Rust or Marty,
sorry, I said Marty, Rust, that Rust has, is done in a subtle way, and I appreciated that. I'm glad it wasn't something that was far more, you know, dream sequency, because that would have been really, really disappointing for me. But all that said, I was very contented with how it all wrapped up. And the fact that you even get to, speaking of family, that you get to see Marty's family come back to the hospital, and that really the main family here is Rust and Marty.
Yeah.
And that they are completely linked together and surprisingly alive.
Yes.
And unkillable. So.
Well, you know, that's the other thing too, is it's just a really, I was surprised at first that, especially that Rust made it, but then I kind of thought, you know what, that is a really, I don't know if hopeful is the right word, but that is a really good way for things to happen, because, you know, it's like, yeah, now you do have to go on living. Like, for Rust's character especially, somebody who had been so beaten down, I think the real catharsis with the situation with his daughter finally came. And now, you know, we don't know what's going to happen afterwards, but we know...
That's something I want to talk about, too, because that's an interesting concept. Because I think that there are other people who think that this show could continue with the two other investigators, or I think this... You know, as we talked about before, this is a complete series, and I really don't see them continuing with these characters.
Well, I think that they've said too that he's said that Pizzolatto has said it's an anthology in the style of American Horror Story, meaning that we're done.
I'm just seeing a lot of comments on the chat boards, people thinking, oh, there's more to this. You got to be satisfied with what you got.
Yeah, I think this is like is Christian Bale going to come back and be Batman? No, he's done.
No, I will say that the ending, I would have been just as happy with the ending if Rust and Marty had both died and the Yellow King remained out there and the evil continued, because I think that would be a real grim, unexpected, and realistic ending to a show, and I would love to have seen a show actually take that risk.
See, I think you and I disagree or see this a little differently, because I think that just because Errol Childress is gone, that doesn't mean the Yellow King is gone.
No, I know he's a representation of the entity, of the evil entity, and of course it's going to go on. They even said that in the episode.
Yeah.
I just meant as far as visually what we saw, it would have been fine for me to see both of those heroes, anti-heroes, die at the end, and have it be even more dark. Maybe that's because I like macabre. I'm not sure, but I really could have gone that direction. I would have liked to have seen that.
I actually think that what we got was super dark, in that these two guys are faced with the truth, the cold, hard truth, that they unraveled this case. They know who is responsible. They know who is doing all of this.
Yeah.
And it's done. It's going to continue. And they have to live
and the bully said that
in a world.
In the episode.
That's what I'm saying. I think that is way more dark, way more fucked up. The idea that they know that the reality of the situation.
We do disagree on that then. Because I would have liked to have seen something much more grim and much more Southern Gothic than to see the two of them survive. Although it does not take away from the fact that I love the scene of them with the cigarette and the wheelchair and them talking to each other and looking at the sky, and that was great. I felt like a little bit less of that, and answer a few more questions for me. Just answer a few more questions. Answer what the connection is. Tell us a little bit more about the art that Marty's daughter is doing. Talk about the connection to maybe a grandfather that could have been molesting her. Just some things that would have been, if we trimmed a little bit off of a few other scenes in the episode, I feel like we could have gotten a little more satisfaction. But I really did want to, because no one ever goes that dark. Like the heroes are dead. The only show that I know that does that, or not, there's many actually, there's several, but like The Wire, you did not expect it because it was so realistic.
Well, so what is it that, I think, I don't know if there's an actual line where, after Rust is he's in the wheelchair and he's talking about his daughter and he's talking about being there, and they're talking about, the idea that now he's still here. I'm not supposed to be here. And
I didn't like that at all. It felt like religion to me.
Oh, I loved it. No, I loved it. It reminded me actually of Buffy in the Once More with Feeling episode. The whole thing that's so crushing about that idea is that Buffy was free. Mm-hmm. She was free. She was dead. She was gone.
Oh yeah. And
well, I'm not explaining it to you.
No,
I'm explaining it to our viewers. But so the idea is she got pulled out by her friends, by these people who thought they were doing something for her to make her life better, and she comes out and she basically says, no, this is hell, this is my torture. Mm-hmm. I was free, now what? And
that's a very good analogy.
And ultimately,
definitely.
Hold on, it's just, sorry, real fast, and then ultimately Spike has to say to her, yeah, and now you have to go on living. That's what life is. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was the exact same conversation that Rust and Marty had last night, was Marty had to say, Rust, this is what being a human is. You gotta go on living.
Well, it's all subjective, and I disagree. I mean, I see the analogy. It's a clear parallel. But I really would have been more satisfied to see those characters, even though they evolved. We saw Marty become noble in saving, or trying to save Rust. And we got some satisfaction from that. I think because of how developed Rust's character had become up until that point, it felt too close to religion, that speech, for me. And I felt like it was betraying something about Rust's character, that he would go that route and say that. I mean, he came to an epiphany of some kind, and the epiphany wasn't cynical. It was positive, which is, that's a fine ending too. I just think as far as like characters go, that I wanted to be more surprised. That's where I wanted to be more. I wanted it to be more unexpected, and I'm more of a realist than going towards the supernatural or the fantasy or religion or anything like that. So I really, really wanted to see something that was a little bit more Rust than
That's funny.
That.
I'm curious to hear. Let us know in the comments, because I actually think that this is the most real interpretation that either of those characters could have had. Like, it's
they
reality.
They had to change.
But it's reality just taking you over, and you don't get to live in this altered state anymore. Rust doesn't get to live in this really grimy and sad and like twisted state anymore. Like, for instance, I would not argue. I would guess, though. My interpretation is, okay, if you talk to Rust Cohle 5 years after that incident, he would say the vision stopped.
Sure,
I think is so like fascinating.
Yeah, because he came to peace within himself. I mean, there's an inner peace in that moment. And that's why it was an epiphany. But not my choice. To
get into the Yellow King thing real fast, by the way, the idea of Carcosa and the idea that once you see the Yellow King and you go mad and you get taken, Carcosa is kind of like the brink, the edge in the stories, and nobody comes back from Carcosa.
Yeah.
And so it was really kind of cool
that he came
back.
Yeah, no, he's the only one.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Here's the other thing, though. They did say that it was still going. There are family members that they didn't get. They're still alive. They've basically closed the book on their involvement with the case, which also rang a little false to me. I mean, they're reincorporating themselves into their real lives again, but the fact, the knowing that there's more out there, again, I really wanted to see more of those things get wrapped up.
Well, do you think that Rust will ever stop?
Yes, I think that's what
you think that's what they're saying?
Yeah, I think he's done. I mean, he has to, first of all, the show's ending. So, I mean, and they capped it off with the two guys, saying this is it. So, no, I think part of it is that the brain change that he had. He's, once he sees his daughter and everybody all love together, I think that means he's done with the case. But I loved Rust being so cynical and all this other stuff. So if you're attached to a character, and for me, I was attached to the character of Rust being this hyper-intelligent, cynical guy with a heart of gold. And I really wanted to see him be true to that. And not go the route that he ended up going. It just felt like, okay. But I not to say that I didn't like the episode, because I did. I really did like the episode. It was not a
I think
loss.
Up until this point, he had been sort of bound to the tragedy that happened to him over the last however many years, and was exercising that and working that out, and wasn't able to let it go.
Well, yeah, with drugs, with
all of it, yeah, and that obsessive behavior and all of those things, and it was a really, really nice. I thought it was nice to see that this person might be able to find some sort of that this person found some sort of release and relief from that thing that he had been chained to since it happened. I think that I liked seeing that for him.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, for me, like watching the finale, we had some friends over watching it last night, and I was talking about there are comparisons between Twin Peaks and True Detective. The finale for Twin Peaks, because they didn't know they were going to get another season, and they didn't, it was like the evil is clearly there, and now it's in the hero. It was just, I wanted it to go in a direction where it was, we're looking at the stars, everything is happy. Not that everything is happy, but it was definitely not.
It's a more optimistic ending.
Yes, and I didn't want that optimistic ending. And going back to the details that we didn't find out about, there are so many things that I really felt like, if they knew they were doing 8 episodes, which they obviously did, they knew that it was going to have a beginning and end, they could have weaved in more answers for us. Just a few, not a ton, but a few more answers, because we still don't know we don't know enough about the Tuttle family. We don't know, just little things that could have been answered within micro scenes.
Yeah. I think ultimately, though, that's just not the story that they wanted to tell.
obviously, or they would have told it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's what's confusing for me, especially. I was confused as a viewer. That's again why I was saying I need to know where we're going so I can go back and watch it again so that I can really understand the true story that they're trying to tell. And I don't think it's incoherent. I don't think that
definitely not
that the genre, like the genre blending and the genre bending and all the mixing and all the little clues and hints and things like that. I don't think that it's incoherent, but I think that it is.
What do you mean by incoherent? Because I think they're so incredibly meticulous. I don't see anything incoherent about it.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it is, but I'm saying it could be interpreted as, why do you have all these loose ends and you don't tie them up?
Okay, I wouldn't call that incoherent. I would just call that a choice, like a serious choice, a methodical choice that they made.
Okay. Yeah. Well, some people might call it the other, but it doesn't matter. The point is they chose to tell the story that they were going to tell, and I think ultimately, I feel pretty satisfied because at the end of the day, it's a character piece, and
as Nick Pizzolatto has said personally, I mean obviously it's a character piece, and everybody, you know what, everyone has a different opinion on this show, and we're gonna hear from you and find out what all your opinions are.
That's the other thing too, is that we were talking about last night. You know, I think that the cool thing about this show, as opposed to I think the cool thing about this show is that I don't think it decides for you. Meaning, I think that this is really a show where, as a viewer, you bring your personal philosophy and experience and things like that to the table.
Yeah, and I think that's also why no one is wrong on this, because it's what you inform it with.
Right. So, but I think that, like, for instance, you guys know, I had been kind of really hung up on Marty the whole time I'm watching this viewing experience, and it's not about being right or wrong, Holly.
No, I'm just saying I didn't see that ever from the beginning.
Exactly, but that's my point, and that's where I'm going with this, is that somewhere down the line, Clarke the person must have met someone like Marty Hart, and must have gotten it in my head somewhere who that person is, and somewhere couldn't forgive that person. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm bringing that to the table, and I'm just fixated on him. I can't unsee something that I don't trust there, right? Mm-hmm. Well, somebody else could see a Maggie type character and not be able to let go of Maggie, or somebody could see somebody like Rust or the investigators or whatever.
Yeah, and I can see that for sure. There are details that when you go back and rewatch them, even as the show was going on, we were all rewatching episodes, and when we go back and you can see the details that are being put together. I think the way it was written was very clever in many ways, but in one of the ways it was clever is the fact that he did land these certain things that could lead you in any. It's not molding you in any direction per se. It's what you see and what you interpret and how it bounces off you specifically, like you were saying. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of people who saw Marty were putting together things from the poster, you name it. Mm-hmm. When I went back and watched it, I saw Marty being a flawed father and a flawed man, and saw nothing more than that he had a violent streak, but nothing more than the fact that he was just a fractured soul, and so that was, and when I rewatched it, that's what I saw again. Mm-hmm. So, it's just, and that's another reason, tying back to why I was disappointed with Rust. It's just been, and maybe that's a valid point too, maybe it's what I wanted to see, because it's my projection, but I really feel like it was, you can pick it apart in any direction. You can, worry about those answers that were not satisfied. But ultimately, I feel like because it was a character piece, that all of that stuff really doesn't matter in the end. I would have liked to have seen, actually, one thing I would like to mention is I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from Maggie's last scene. I just wanted to see, but again, that's maybe because I have an issue with the women on the show.
Right. I mean, yeah, and it's it's interesting too, because this show is very clear about whose story they were telling. Yeah. And all the wonderfully textured side characters that came into play, they are really and truly side characters. And, this is Marty and Rust's story, and no one else's. Yeah. And, that's an interesting thing as well. It's really, but I just...
And the casting again, sorry to interrupt, but the casting again, and one thing I wanted to mention, if you guys haven't watched the episode shows that are on HBO, it's so worth watching, especially after everything's wrapped. But I was telling you guys last night when we were watching the episode that part of the reason this show works, the main reason this show works so well, besides the writing, is the fact that you've got Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, and they've been friends for so long, and their chemistry together is just, it's magnetic, it's just natural, it's really organic. And one of the things that they had in one of these inside episodes was they were talking about the fight with Marty and Rust in the parking lot, which just looked brutal. I really felt for those stuntmen because they hit hard. But before they did that scene, Matthew McConaughey went to the crew and said, I want you to play the Rocky theme. And so they played the Rocky theme, and the two guys came. He wanted to set Woody's mind at ease. So they played the Rocky theme, they danced, they got it all out, and then they went for it for the scene. But it was out of love that they, that they started that way, which I thought was just it's very charming.
Yeah, very charming.
Yeah.
So, overall, how do you feel? Overall,
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think overall good. Yeah. Yeah, it was, it was, I think the flaw that was with Lost is that we didn't have enough character. With this, we had character to spare, and the answers, you can go back and watch the show a million times over and get more from it. And I think that's what I like about the show. And no matter how you slice it, at the end of the day, it's Marty and Rust, and it's those two characters.
Yeah.
And so, and that's how they ended it. And that's more than you could hope for.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I really enjoyed it, and it also reminded me of that scene in The Princess Bride where the grandson says, who gets Humperdinck? And the grandma's like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, somebody's got to kill him.
Right.
And he goes, no, he gets away.
That's a good point. We're all that little boy.
Yeah, we're all the grandson. And and that's what the grandson says. He says, Jesus, what did you read me this for? This is horrifying.
We're all
and
savage.
it's true. I mean, but I think that, we live in a very complicated and complex world and universe, and I really liked watching these two guys navigate that really complex and complicated universe. So I really enjoyed it. And I am happy about the idea of wiping the slate completely clean and seeing what else is out there. We know for sure it's been confirmed that there will be multiple directors on season 2, which personally I don't think is a good idea.
I don't either.
I think,
agree with you there. I think that part of the strength of the show, as we've talked about before, is that with one director you have one vision, and I feel like, especially with Nick Pizzolatto, he could form a working relationship with one director and have an unspoken language between the two of them that could carry forth with a whole new aesthetic, a whole new feel for the second series.
Well, give someone else the opportunity to do with what Cary Fukunaga did. I mean,
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but have it be one.
Yes,
yeah.
I mean, and because it was such a real experience and breakout opportunity for Fukunaga, and he's going to be really busy for a long time, as well he should be. And so if somebody else could be afforded that same opportunity, I think that would be really, really cool. So it's too bad. I think it's too bad that they're
maybe a female director.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of different places that this whole franchise and series can go, and I'm sure that it will be in a different location, and I'm sure it'll be in a different time period.
I've heard British, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, who knows, but that was in the rumor mill, so.
That's interesting. The one thing I don't want is a noir. I don't want proper 30s, 40s
Oh,
noir.
I don't think they would be that literal. I don't think they would go that literal.
Well, but think about, I mean, they could maybe...
A neo-noir, I could see.
Well, I think that, the way American Horror Story has been messing around with time period, and they're doing, a series set in the 70s, and then series set present day, and, I think going back would be super awesome. Like, for instance, this might sound crazy, but, maybe a Western. Might be kind of neat. I mean, no, that's
just me.
That's fine, but that's the beauty of the idea of taking a detective series, anthologizing it, 8 episodes. You could do it anytime, any place.
Space Western. That's my space Western.
So what do you want to see?
From the second series, I want to see a completely different tone. I want to see really rich female characters. And I want to see it be completely cohesive, just like this series was, from beginning to end. You know, in spite of the fact that they're having multiple directors. I feel like it totally has to clean the slate, because that's the beauty of the show, and it's the freedom that Nick Pizzolatto has to do whatever he wants to do. The guy is such an incredible writer that I feel like basically it's the dream job for a writer. It's like this is his chance to really world build, but not just world build once, world build 2, 3, who knows how long this anthology will go.
Do we know, is he going to be the sole writer on the next season?
He's writing it right now.
And it's like, so, and he's the only one?
As far as I know, there haven't been any other names announced as writers. Okay. So, as far as it is right now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
that
that's
could change.
That
could change because as we know now that there are all the other directors, it could go another direction. But I really feel like, again, the strength of the show is the fact that it's Nick Pizzolatto.
Well, and I'm sure too that they're going to shoot and be done and then just release it, like they did this one, which is smart. I think that's where American Horror Story sort of falters a little bit, is they're still shooting while they're airing episodes. And I think that not having feedback, not having any sort of opinion or speculation as you're shooting is a good idea. So I think that I hope HBO packs their shooting schedule and does the exact same thing, you know, like lets them go, lets them do their thing, and then releases it completely removed. It's like it's over.
No, I definitely, I mean, I don't know how long we're going to have to wait for this. It could be
I bet it'll be next year. I bet it'll come out I bet it'll be Game of Thrones style. You know, every April around the 9th, you're going to get the premiere, and you're going to wait a year.
I hope so.
And I'm sure it'll be the same way. It'll be a year in between each one. We'll see. We'll see. So, all right, that's our True Detective perspective. So obviously, let us know in the comments below what you think, and Twitter, Facebook, it's all in the thing. You can see our things right here. So do you want to make an announcement?
Well, we do have more stuff coming up for you, because we don't want to leave you hanging. So we're going to be doing, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing some movie reviews, as well as some of our favorite films, as well as, let's see what else we got. Well, I'm not going to name the movies yet. Recommendations
for one another.
Right. And maybe even some deep digging in Netflix archive, so that we can actually sort of pull out those gems for you and talk about those.
Yeah, we want to make sure that you guys have access to what it is.
Because we know it's so hard to navigate.
It's so impossible.
It's really infuriating.
Yes,
so
and hopefully
we'll find the gold and we'll talk about it.
Yes, and hopefully there will be another big announcement from us in the next couple of weeks.
Can't say anything
but
quite yet.
Our lips are sealed for now, but there is more to come. So
lots more.
I think that's a good wrap up to the first series.
Thanks for following us, and thanks for coming on this journey with us. It's been really, really fun.
Super fun. Stay active. Please keep talking to us. Please keep engaging. If you have any suggestions since we're going to be doing
nothing to do with what we're wearing, by the way.
Yeah, shame. But if you're going to, any suggestions for films that maybe we could watch, that we could talk about, that you want somebody to kind of unpack and discuss?
Ooh. One we're going to do for sure, which this is for the Nicolas Cage fans. We're going to have an episode where we talk just Nicolas Cage movies, because Clarke has never seen Vampire's Kiss. But yeah, we're going to do a Nicolas Cage retrospective.
We've got a lot coming up. You'll like it. But give us suggestions. If you have any movies or topics you want us to tackle, let us know. That's what we're here for. That's what social media is here for. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Clarke Wolfe.
I'm Holly Payne.
And we will see you next week.